Before we get into the show, I wanted to let you know about a new resource that I created. It is a PDF that will walk you through how to create your own personal definition of leadership and why this matters now more than ever. Funny enough, when I interviewed 140 of the world's top CEOs, this was actually the hardest thing for them to do. I know, crazy, right? But this is also something that we have to do because you cannot build and you cannot become what you don't define. So in this PDF, not only will I walk you through a framework for how you can define leadership, but I will also share with you some of the definitions from CEOs I interviewed, including from the CEOs of organizations like Oracle, like Verizon, and KPMG. So you will see and hear exactly how these other CEOs are thinking about leadership. If you want to grab that PDF, you can go to defineleadership.com. And of course, please don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel.
Because I'm a true believer that if you put yourself at risk in a different geography, in a town in which you don't even know the metro station, the names, in a country in which you don't understand the labor legislation, the currency, and you're totally lost to read the sign, you're going to come out stronger if you accept that risk. And if you go through many risks in many geographies, you're a different person, you're a stronger person. So for me, I'm very serious. I'm never hired anybody as intelligent as it could be. Is that person being, whether it's 28 or 35 years old, if he has never lost his domicile, zone of comfort, doesn't matter how smart he is, he will not work with me.
Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of The Future of Work. My guest today is Sébastien Bazin. He is the chairman and CEO of Accor. Sébastien, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you, Jacob. Good to be there.
So we first actually got connected because when I was working on my book, The Future Leader, you were one of the 140 CEOs who I interviewed. And now here we are, I think almost a year and a half later, and I finally get to have you on my podcast. So I'm very excited to speak with you.
I guess I am too. I just have to pass the test.
Yeah, exactly. Well, let's start with a little bit of background information about you, because one of the things that and I know a lot of listeners and viewers are very interested in is just how you got to where you are. So maybe you can take us way back, even to, I don't know, when you were a kid and how you grew up. Did you always know you wanted to become a CEO, or how did you get to this point?
No, never dreamed of it. The only thing I knew is I would not go and work for my father. My family has been in real estate for 5 generations in a family-held company, and from the first day I said, not me. I will not go. That being said, it's never been a straight line. I just wanted to be independent in my own acting and in my life, so I went different lines, different geography, different mentors, different industry. And here am I by pure accident.
So when you say pure accident, what do you mean?
Well, I mean that I guess I left very early when I was 23 years old after going through a master at the Sorbonne University in Paris. I left to New York, work on Wall Street as a financial analyst, then as a stock trader, then went to investment banking in New York as well. Then worked for a big tycoon raider called Alan Clore, who's been buying aluminum company Kaiser Aluminum, based in San Francisco, Oakland. So I moved to San Francisco, worked for the guy, then left after the stock market crashed in October 91. And then I went to investment banking in New York, and then in London, then private equity for 15 years. Then I was a board member of this company I'm the chairman of now. Very vocal, large shareholder, probably nasty guy. I hope I'm no longer. But I was rough, I was harsh, and I should have known better that being a CEO is much tougher than I even expected myself. And after having had 3 CEOs being dismissed under my tutorship as a director, we were looking for a new CEO. And I had no envy whatsoever to be the guy, but I was on the nomination committee. And long story short, we could not agree on a name. and we had 5 different candidates for 5 different directors. So it's awful. And I was pissed.
Wow.
And I told my fellow director that the reason why we don't agree on the common profile is because we don't have the same reading on what the company needs. To which they said, Sebastien, you're right. You are the longer serving director. Why don't you draft what you believe the company Accor needs in the future? And depending on your drafting, then we're going to be readjusting the names. So I did, end of July 2019, and I've been handwriting in exactly 4 hours, 12 pages of document, and putting page by page Accor's diagnostic and what was needed and how to implement it and for which reason. And it was the what, the why, and the how. And after doing it, after page number 3, Jacob, I have to tell you, I did ask myself, what the hell am I doing here? By writing this, I knew I was getting into a dicey territory. And I finished that 12-pager, gave it to my director the next day, and it took them 3 hours. They called me and said, Sebastien, we found the guy. It's you. And I said, no, because I've never managed any company in my life. I was managing Colony in Europe, which was like Formula One, with only 40 people, highly graduated, very smart guys. And I went to see my boss in Los Angeles, Tom Barrack, which probably is my mentor in life for sure. And he was my boss, and I went to see him, and he was also a fellow. And I did share with him what happened the day before in Paris, and he laughed at me. He said, Sebastien, don't even think of it. You're out of your F mind. That was not too nice to say that to me. He said, Sebastien, we're here to make investment to elect CEOs, not to replace CEOs. Don't even think of it. And I need you still with me at college. And I spent exactly 20 hours in Los Angeles that day. And true story, I went back to Paris. When I landed, I got a phone call from Tom. He said, Sebastien, I have to apologize to you. The only question which mattered yesterday, I did not ask you. And that question is, are you interested in performing and doing that job? I was only talking to you about me and Colony and why I needed you. I never asked you what you wanted. And I must say, being on the plane for 12 hours, I did think of it. I said, it's funny, he only talked about himself and Colony. And he was nice enough to call me the next day. And I did say to him, I said, Tom, yeah, I think I want to do it for one reason. I am sick and tired of giving advice, critiquing people. I need to see whether I need to actually put myself to the fire and put myself at risk and hopefully being able to deliver on it. To which he said, Sebastien, if that's really what you want to do, then I could accept it with one reason, one condition. All the directors of that company, Accor, which is publicly listed and a major French corporation, they have to endorse you unanimously. If they don't, if you're missing one vote, Colony will not vote for you. So embark 100% of the non-Colony board members, and then you'll have my proxy. And I spent 2 weeks in the summer of Paris going to private residentials of those fellow board members, because of course they were not in Paris. And all of that happened in exactly 3 weeks. And this is the worst financial decision I've made in my life. I knew it when I left Colony. That was a bad financial decision for me leaving. But probably one of the best personal decisions, because I'm probably a different person today than I was when I left 8 years ago. And I'll probably tell you why. But it's being refreshing. It's been tough, but it's being fulfilling.
I love that story. So Colony was the private equity group. And so you were a private equity group and you were a shareholder in Accor, is that right?
We were the larger shareholder. At the time, we owned 13% of Accor. Investment I had made on Colony's behalf 7 years before.
So it's crazy. So you were actually writing almost like a job description or an analysis for who the new CEO should be. And then you basically end up writing something for yourself that you then ended up doing.
That's there's 2 moments in life in which why I said that to you, I don't know. But there's 2 moments in my life where I was able to write like a 10-pager without any rewriting one word. Just the feeling that through your brain and through your fingers, you write without stopping very easily and it flows through, is when my mother passed away and I wrote up what I wanted to say at the church. And the second time was on that job description. It never happened to me since,
Wow.
but I
Yeah.
strange feeling.
Yeah, no, that must be quite strange. Uh, I can also imagine that's probably a very intimidating feeling because we actually didn't talk about it, but I think Accor, how many employees do you guys have now? Around 200,000, is that right?
280,000.
200, and you're one of the world's largest hospitality brands. I mean, everybody I'm sure knows your properties or has stayed at them at some point in their life. You guys are everywhere. And how do you go? Because to me, I mean, if I can imagine, like if that opportunity came to me and somebody said, "Oh, Jacob, you have a team of 12 people that I have now," and then somebody said, "How would you like to lead a team of 200,000 people?" Uh, I don't think that is a choice a lot of people would make very comfortably. So how did you decide to do that?
Well, I never think when I do anything, do I put comfort into it? Never ever, and I hope I will never do. It was just a moment in which that company needed leadership direction. I was obnoxious enough to believe that I could be the leader, or probably uh, self-centered, believing I could be. Whether it was 50,000 employees, 120 or 280, doesn't make any difference. At the end, you're just talking to individuals. You want to gain a small group next to you, and you trust that that small group will be able to replicate what they've been hearing from you. You just have to. The one thing that I've learned through that exercise, to tell you the truth, and that's one thing I need to get out of, is incarnation. When you becoming a
Hmm.
leader of a publicly listed company, your words, your face, your presence, your body language is critical, very important. Don't deceive any of those people. And the nature of the decision you make are 180 degrees apart from the decision I've made when I was an investment banker or private equity investor. Because at the end, for 15 years of my life prior to Accor, the consequences of my decisions were of financial natures, no human real impact. You can be wrong, you can be right. You hopefully right 6 times out of 10. And if you're wrong 4 times, this is okay. It's only cash.
Yeah.
In my new capacity, 90% plus of everything I could decide upon have a human impact on individuals, personnel working for Accor, and their own families, basically living off them. So it's the time of reflection, the substance behind the decision is vastly different from the financial, which is probably why I wanted to leave that previous world, because it's a bit of a cold industry. I'm now in a very
Yeah.
hot industry.
Hmm. You mentioned earlier that it was a bad financial choice for you, but it was a good personal one, and that it kind of transformed who you are as a leader and as a person. Can you talk a little bit about what you meant there?
Well, when you work in private equity and you manage other people's money, you have true incentive. If you happen to be mostly right, you do share part of the value add capital gain, and you whether it's 10%, 5%, 20%. If you manage billions, 5% of billions, when you actually have a gain, it's a lot of money, and it's being shared by a few individuals. And I accepted that was the rule at the time. If you happen to be a chairman and CEO of a French listed company, you have a lot of scrutiny on how much money you make. You have to compare it to other CEOs in France. And it is a fraction of what I was making when I was in college. But of course, I knew it. I didn't go blind. But I never, I never did, never will put money at the forefront of anything I do. So I'm I'm fortunate enough to have had some money aside. But no, it was just time. Forget what I said about the words financial decision. That was not even part of the equation when my decision was made.
Hmm. And how did the current role that you took on, how did that shape you as a person? Because you said that it made you different. How did it do
Yeah,
that?
order or priority. When being in the financial world for almost 20 years, mostly in America, in London, and then in Paris. your orders of priority, I think because it was my fiduciary duty, you first think on behalf of your limited partners or shareholders. So you think financially, then you think about the employees, then you think about the clients, and then you think about the community. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4. Today, I would put financial number 4 at the end of the list. I first think about the employee. I would secondly think about the community in which we are based. Third, your clients, partners, and fourth, financial. So you just reverse your parameters. It doesn't mean that you was wrong before. You just conduct yourself very differently.
Yeah. You mentioned earlier when you were younger, you moved around a lot. You had a bunch of different jobs. I'm really curious to kind of dive a little bit more into the thought process that you had, because you said you didn't know that you wanted to become a CEO, but you were living in different parts of the world. You were taking on different jobs. Do you remember what was going through your mind? Were you thinking about a career path or progression, or were you just taking opportunities that were coming your way? How did you decide what to do and where to live?
Easy. I never liked, never will, anything which has two words, career path. Anybody who is hostage of its own field or where he wants to be 20 years from today is likely to be very disappointed, frustrated, and then in some kind of a depression. No, the best way to conduct yourself is I moved from one town to another, one job to another, for a person that I've met. That man, that woman, I liked, I loved, and I just wanted to be part of the adventure for that person. So I've never been basically geared by an institutional name. I joined Colony because I met Tom Barrack, and Tom Barrack is an exceptional person. And I've met somebody which was wonderful at Alan Clore. And so it's, and I will do it again. If I were to meet another exceptional person, the chances are, yeah, I could actually leave my current position and go and follow that person just to learn from that person. No,
That's interesting. Yeah, no, that's very interesting. I mean, do you think for people who are listening and watching this, who are maybe entry level or mid-level employees, would you say that that is the right way to approach your career? Don't focus on the company, but focus on the person you will be working with and prioritize that over the brand or the company, but focus on the, who your leader is going to be or your mentor.
Yeah, I'm giving advice. We are so different in life in terms of education and religions and nationality. For me, it worked. And the only question, one way to answer your question, which is a bit of different way. If you don't believe your boss, wherever you are in any organization, does not teach you, or you don't respect him, or you don't accept his leadership, don't stay another minute. Life is too short to be under somebody for which you have either no respect, no admiration, or no learnings from. And that's what I've actually conducted myself. It's because I need more. I need to be fed.
Yeah. No, I think that's great advice, because I think a lot of people around the world are stuck in positions where they don't have that with their managers and with their leaders, and they feel very disengaged and frustrated, and as a result you start to check out of the company. So I really love that advice, and I think that's something
Jacob, you make me think of something. I've been hiring now a lot of people. Accor, every year we hire 80,000 new people every year.
Wow.
Because we open one new hotel a day. That means 365 hotels. That means 50,000 people only for the new openings. And we lose 10% of the 280. So that's another 28,000 that I need to basically reshuffle and rehire. And what I wanted to get at is, I can tell you why I travel so much and change different courses. Because I'm a true believer that if you put yourself at risk in a different geography, in a town in which you don't even know the metro station, the names, in a country in which you don't understand the labor legislation, the currency, and you're totally lost to read the sign, you're going to come out stronger if you accept that risk. And if you go through many risks in many geographies, you're a different person, you're a stronger person. So for me, I'm very serious. I'm never hired anybody as intelligent as it could be, is that person being, whether it's 28 or 35 years old, if he has never lost his domicile, zone of comfort, doesn't matter how smart he is, he will not work with me. He won't, because I need that person. I mean, at least he should have gone like 1 year in Africa in non-profit organization. Just go out of your comfort zone. And if you haven't dared doing it, then the wrong team partner for me.
It's interesting. I want to touch on that a little bit more because I feel like a lot of people are scared to get out of their comfort zone, right? They take the jobs that are comfortable. They surround themselves with people who are just like them. We're very much creatures of comfort because we feel safe there. And your advice is pretty much you have to get uncomfortable as you can, because that's when you learn and grow. So, I mean, for people who are listening and watching this, it sounds like the best piece of advice for you would be, I don't know, take on a new project or a job that might scare you, go live in a different part of the world, like do something that will push you in some way.
It's also matters of age and generation. If you happen to have a good education, I didn't say solid education, any good education, in between the age of 25 and 35 or 25 and 40 years old, go and work for so many people, so many jobs, put yourself at risk, even every 2.5 years, because you won't have the chance to do it when you're going to be 55 years old. Because the risk at 55 is so far greater than not to find another job. But between 25 and 40 years old, the world is just yours. Just go for it and change with respect to your current employer. But that's what I've been teaching my kids, everybody else is just around me. Take your chances.
People might be listening and watching this thinking, well, you know, Sebastien, that sounds great, but what if I fail? What if I take that chance or that risk and it ends up going terrible? Then what?
It's if you... One condition, you would fail, of course, and I did fail, is don't stay alone. Talk to someone and try to share why you failed. And that somebody would probably give you the good advice and you're going to start again. The biggest stumbling block for me is people who are isolated, alone, without any partners or family members in which they can share the pain. If you can share the pain, you'll see light. But keep it for yourself, it's just awfully difficult. So the risk of failing is high, but again, the rebound is so rewarding. But again, my advice, I don't want to sound, because the last thing I want is to lecturing anybody. I am in a very comfortable position. I'm 59 years old. I took that risk. That was a different time. That was in 1985. So I believe the risk is worth taking today, probably even more so because we have a greater numbers of opportunities with digital tools and technology. I think these numbers of optionalities are far greater today than they were 25 years ago. But still, anybody who's been spending 20 years or 15 years between 25 years old and 40 at any Google, Amazon, or Citibank of the world, they are a very happy person. Why am I giving them any lecture or lesson? This is not me. They're perfectly happy in life. And I respect it.
Can you think of a time when you failed?
Yeah, I failed when I went and made a lot of investment in the soccer world. I bought Paris Saint-Germain, which was big. It is still biggest French club today, top 4 now. I felt I knew about football. I felt I would be able to hire a good coach. I felt I would be a good people manager with the soccer players. I failed. I misread that environment. I was not the right personality to understand soccer players. I did not address the PSG fan as I should have done so. Thank God I found somebody to take the club from us, which is a Qatari, which still owns it today. No, that was not a great exercise. I think I was immature and probably too sure of myself in an unknown territory. I should have never embarked into that sports soccer activity. Does it make me a different person, stronger today? Yeah, I got so many bad press over those 5 years of being chairman of this club. I am less sensible to what people think of me today because of this. Because when you got bad press, and you kind of accept it. So now there's examples. Sorry.
So that actually brings me to the next question that I wanted to ask you, and that is how you deal with pressure and scrutiny. Because if you were to look back at leadership, 15, 20 years ago, you probably didn't have as much scrutiny. We didn't have social media. People, you wouldn't be able to just go onto Google and see your name, front page somewhere. But today, anything that you do, people can scrutinize, they can write about you, they can post about you, they can put you on Glassdoor. How do you as a leader deal with that kind of scrutiny when everybody is watching everything that you do? Do you feel kind of an overwhelming sense of pressure at some point?
No, again, I'm a bizarre beast. No, but I'll be very candid with you, Jacob. Number one, I never stress for things that I don't control. Never, ever. Whatever happens to me, I simply ask myself the question, is it my fault? Could I have, should I have done anything to prevent it? Was I able to do something to prevent it? If the answer is no, it just passes on me like not water, nothing. Two, my best baggage is being my parents' education from my childhood. And what people think of me, I don't need to live in people's eyes. Representation of me in other people's eyes, it's absolutely irrelevant. So I know what I'm doing, I know what I'm good and bad, and does not matter. People's judgment really does not matter. Three, and it's I should not admit it, but it's the one way to protect myself, and because I have no passion for it, no needs of it. I am not on LinkedIn. I am not on Twitter. I am not on Instagram. I am on nothing. So I don't navigate. I don't go and see what people tweet and say because I'm not on it. So I think when I thinking I'm going sideways here, Jacob. The reason why we have so much trouble with so many politicians and so many government agencies is precisely because of social media and what people say about people. They know it instantaneously. They don't like it. They want to react to it. I really would like to go back to the days of 30 years ago when Churchill, De Gaulle, Adenauer, and others, Roosevelt, did not have the pressure of social media because I think they acted so much better and differently. So, sorry, that's a very sideways, but it's no, that pressure is very minimal with me.
Yeah.
Extremely.
Hearing you talk, you actually remind me a lot of Hubert Joly, the former CEO of Best Buy. And the reason I say that is because when I interviewed Hubert, he struck me as the type of person who wasn't just a business leader, but he was a very thoughtful person. He knew about history and philosophy, and he had a very, I don't even know the right way to explain it, but just a different way to think about life. And hearing you talk, I see a lot of similarities between your approach to business and life and his, as far as letting things go, trying to improve constantly. And I mean, honestly, when I spoke with Hubert, I didn't even feel like I was talking to a CEO at some point. I felt like I was talking to a philosopher or a monk.
Yeah, you should stop there. I am clearly not as literate as he is. I know Hubert pretty well. So he's. No, I think it has a lot, and it has probably nothing to do with being French. It just has to do on, you would be asking Hubert if he wanted to be a CEO one day of his life, you may have asked him, I don't know the answer. I would have probably guessed he would have said, no, it depends. I'm being a believer. Life is a blessing. Just make it worthwhile, go through it. It's going to be injustice. It's going to be unfair. It's going to be tough. But the bright side is so much better. So no, it depends on personality. And I guess it depends. I told you, I've been blessed with my education. Education meaning, again, parental education.
So would you credit your philosophy on life and your approach to leadership? Do you credit your parents and your education for shaping that and instilling in you? Or instilling that in you? Okay.
1,000%.
So what is it that they did? I mean, what from them made you who you are?
Well, it's a lot to do also with Catholic. Don't value money for other things than helping you in life. So don't make it any priority. Be generous. be kind to another person. Don't impose your arrogance, your intelligence, or your social status to anyone. Admit there's many things you don't know. Learn and make people around you better, bigger. No, and I'm not a priest. I'm not even a. I don't want to tell you. I guess I'm a great, good person. This is not what I want to portray to you. It's just, I guess, there's a lot of things in which I react to this pandemic now. With it's being very difficult. It's being huge stress. But we're going to come out of it. Accor and ourselves are different and stronger person, no doubt about it. I will not go through that yet, so don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But it's those troubled water that we went through. Yeah, makes us different.
Before we get back to the show, I just wanted to remind you to head over to defineleadership.com to grab my new PDF that is going to walk you through a framework for how you can personally define leadership and why that matters. You will also hear from CEOs and how they define leadership, and you're going to hear from CEOs from organizations like KPMG, Oracle, and Verizon. So again, that is defineleadership.com if you want to grab that PDF while it's available. And now, back to the show. Well, I wanted to actually talk to you about COVID, but before we jump into that, I just had one more question to follow up on this. It seems like you're very grounded as far as with what's happening in the business, what's happening in the world. You're very in touch with things. And I say that because I feel like sometimes a lot of leaders, the more successful they get, the bigger they get, the more money they make, they start to live in this ivory tower and they get disconnected from everything that's happening around them. Is there something that you do on a regular basis to stay more grounded and more real?
Stay as close as I could to my 9 best buddies since 7 years old. And we all have very different paths. And then, and my family. No, I'm a very rational person. So I think I have a lot of passion, a lot of vision, and I can embark people. But no, the branding part is don't forget where you're coming from. So that's okay.
Yeah.
And again, I've been saying that so many times, Jacob, is I don't take any credit or any benefit from being the CEO of a large corporation. It does not matter a minute. And I'll tell you something else. Through the storm that we've been going through, I think you can go through the storm in a so much better, nicer way, stronger way when you are at my position than anybody in America or elsewhere having to run 30 or 100 employees as opposed to me 20,000, not sleeping at night, having a treasury crunch, knowing he's not going to be paying his suppliers or his employees. He understands and he knows the children and the names of his employees' members. Gosh, the pressure on the shoulders of this person is 10 times tougher than mine. So, so the CEO of a large corporation is certainly not a better person or a stronger person than anybody else. So,
that's actually very interesting. I haven't ever heard anybody say that. That the pressure of a smaller company can be greater because, like you said, you know their names, you know the families, you know, and I have a team of 12 people, and you're right. I mean, I know their names, their families, I know what's going on with them. Whereas that's not possible when you have 200,000 plus people. So it's a very, very interesting way to think about that. I haven't heard anybody say that. You mentioned earlier that you hire around 80,000 people a year, which is crazy, and you're opening a hotel every day. Clearly, you're responsible for the lives of a lot of people, and we've gone through this crazy pandemic. Can you talk a little bit about the impact that COVID has had on your business, and how do you as a leader maintain a message of optimism and hope even as you're going through such a tragedy?
Yeah, it goes in different sequences. First, that was early 2020. Something terrible is happening in China. Accor is very big in China. We have about 400. So by late January, February, my Chinese people telling me that I guess there is an epidemic. It's not a pandemic. It's an epidemic in China, and huge impact on the hotels, on travel, and on health and safety. Then all of a sudden, within 10 days, how did it happen? Something's happening in Italy and in Portugal, and then in Spain. again, crossing many continents. So it's closer to home. And then within 10 days, it's all over Europe, and you see it happening in India and in so it's 3 or 4 weeks passing, super, super rapid. And then I have to make a decision mid-March. I knew I had to close 95% of the hotels on the 1st of April.
Wow.
And I'm here alone on my desk and said, I need to write an email and talk to as many people as I can, my country's head and members of my executive committee. And I need to tell them, guys, we're going to be shutting down the entire Accor operation on the 1st of April because we can't remain open. And I need to make sure all my employees will be safe. And I did write and send that direction decision to the entire Accor. And I knew by doing it that the impact on tens of thousands of people will be just devastating within 1 week of that being implemented. Because at the end of the first week of April, many of them will not have any paycheck and no access to hospital and no access to food for their families. And that was pure injustice, and that was my decision. So I was fortunate enough to convince my board of directors to put this 70 million all-hearted COVID-19 dedicated fund and basically send a similar message to the same 280,000 employees to tell them, if you don't have any government subsidies moving forward, and if you were to be impacted, you and your family, by the need to go to hospital with COVID, or if you have no access to food because you can't afford it, those 70 million are just simply yours. Take it. It's a grant, it's a subsidies, and it's a donation. And in many countries, almost 2/3, you had government subsidies all over Europe and America. But I guess you had a lot of people who did not have them. And you know what? 14 months after the fact, we displayed 30 million out of the 70, and have 80,000 people who've been asking for that donation in Southeast Asia, in Chile, in Nigeria, in many places. People. And it made me feel better. That was the minimum we could have done. But it is also part to your question is that when you run a company as large as it is, the blessing is being nourished by so many different, again, personality, different geographies. We're all different in life. And I can tell you, I love going to Sub-Saharan Africa. I love going to Peru as much as I love going to Thailand or Myanmar, many other places. So it's we've done that. The second thing is when people are in the dark and they are in stress and in distress, talk to them. Even if you have nothing much to say, do not go blind. So I forced myself, and I was alone here. We were like 12 people in this office there, as opposed to 2. I went to the office every day, and I decided every 3 weeks to run a small 5 to 7 minute video on my smartphone, alone, just filming myself, without any script. And every 3 weeks, putting a video, telling them how I felt about myself, about Accor, giving them information on the state of the health epidemic and frontiers being locked down and what we're trying to do for salvaging it, just giving, and of course, message of hope. Because if I'm in disarray, then we're all lost. You have to be not in denial, but you have to be a true optimist, projecting yourself to yourself. And I did, and some messages were probably empty and probably not much makes sense out of it. And I never done another version. So just first shot, go at it. Just speak with your stomach. And then communicating with my board every week for 45 minutes on the same topic, no agenda. I was telling them every Thursday from noon to 12:45 what's going on in the world. So if you admit the unknown, if you accept that you don't control much, just focus on what you control. And what you control is your own organization, what you should be stopping from doing, what are you learning from this crisis, and a lot of things you should be doing on preventing that epidemic going. So it's, and you had time to think, and I was no longer traveling. I usually travel 260 days a year. All of a sudden, I was here stuck to my desk and at home in Paris, which was also probably a good thing for me. So it's just communication is absolutely everything, but they need to see you. They need to see that the boss is at the helm through the storm. Again, there's many other recipes of workshops. We've been working.
Is there anything that you learned about yourself as a leader and as a person after going through the, well, I want to say after going through the pandemic, we're still coming out of it, but as a result of the pandemic?
Um, I'm not sure actually. I probably have learned again that no, my just pure ability to absorb the unknown.
Hmm.
Um, I it's I don't know why I talk about him. It's the former Pope John Paul II. He said, "Have no fear," and I have no fear.
Hmm.
Just accept that it is hitting us, and just go through it, but don't admit defeat. So no, it just it was not only a job, but I felt that I guess I needed to be there and I needed to do what I've done. And again, whether it was accepted or not, I'll tell you in a couple of years because the first thing I want to do is I want to go back traveling because I want to hold those people in my arms. I miss them. I think the reason why I left colonies of financial world is human touch, human capital is absolutely everything. So I just need to go back.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's great to hear a leader of a company have so much affection for the people who help build the business because you don't always hear and see that. So I think it's very refreshing.
But Jacob, sorry to block you in a second. I know I'm being outspoken and a bit too rough and too quick in critiquing, and I don't want to critique. But you do have today two different economies in very different natures. And we don't compete together, we just are very much complementarity, we complement, I guess, adding to each other. The first, which you know very well, is the media communication industry, which is in the hands of American and Chinese, the GAFA and the Alibaba. Those are extraordinary companies, growing like hell, rewarding, growing, but they never meet
Yeah.
any of their clients. They actually call them users and not clients. And then you have another industry, which is not better or worse, by the way, which happened to be part of my industry, which is the warm industry, in which everything in the hands of my employees at the hotel level, because they are fronting with the guest, and something will be happening to the guest. We're just a caretaker. And that industry is vastly different, probably not growing as fast, but I cannot see myself working for the first industry because it's not me. And thank God people will love the first, like the second. So that human touch and human capital is just all about the business model.
It also transitions a little bit to what I wanted to talk about, and that was Arne Sorenson, the former CEO of Marriott. And the reason why I wanted to bring him up is because you were fierce rivals, Marriott and Accor, but you also had that level of respect and camaraderie. And I feel that in the business world, sometimes we view rivals as people that we want to crush and destroy, and they're our enemy. But you actually had a different relationship with Arne. So I wanted to talk a little bit about how did you view Arne Sorenson and Marriott as a rival, but also have that kind of respect, and what did you learn from him?
The reason why I said that is when I started my job, and that August 2019, he was the first who called me like a month after. He said, Sebastian, I don't know you. I heard about your past at Colony Capital. If you happen to come to the US, I would love to go and spend time with you. And I was the next week in New York, and we went for a walk for almost 2 hours, him and I in Central Park, just walking. And I didn't know him, and he didn't know me either.
So this was your first time meeting in person?
Yeah, absolutely. And we knew we were competitors, but he was passionate, visionary, expert, and super, super kind. And very human and very generous. And he was caring of whether I was having tough time in my job, could he be helpful, assisting me? So he took it on a very personal matter, five weeks into my job. So no one could actually not remember when that person calls you. And the many times I've seen him since, he's being always the same. That strong personality, leadership, but very generous of his time to others. And that means he was an exceptional, special person.
Why do you think he actually called you and reached out to you? Because he could have easily just been sitting from the sidelines thinking, oh, I hope Sebastien fails. I hope he does a terrible job. Because, again, you're a big competitor of his.
No, he never chat. Jacob, I've just described Arne to you. He's just a different person than the one you described.
Yeah.
He cares. And I think probably he was intrigued, or he just wanted to be helpful and nice. And so was he. I can't tell you. But he was certainly very spontaneous. Now, there was nothing politics about it.
So talk me through that process. So you're sitting there one day and your cell phone rings and it's just Arne on the phone and he says, "Hey, how's it going?" Or how did that connection come about?
I was like a small guy. I mean, I was impressed when I heard he was Arne Sorenson. I was like a young kid. I said, "Well, it's good talking to you." And then when he said, "Sebastien, let's not do it over the phone," he was nice enough to say that he heard many good things about me. But he said, "Sebastien, since we've never met and we're probably going to be fighting against each other, it's better that we meet first." He's actually made it funny. And he was right. We've been competing ever since with a lot of respect. But the one thing about our industry, which is very different from the investment banking and private equity, in those days, you know each other, but you box with each other.
Yeah.
You just compete, you rough, and sometimes you actually badmouth other people not in a nice way, but it's a fight. It's a dog fight. You talk about Marco Plemeden and Hyatt and Chris Nassetta at Hilton and many others. We respect and like each other. It's far from being a dogfight. So again, and I cannot tell you why that is, but certainly different attitudes than the industry I was in before.
Do you remember some of what you talked about during your 2-hour walk?
We talked quite a bit about family, and then we talked enormously about China. He was very intrigued on how to read China. Again, he was also looking ahead. So am I. So I guess which is why that walk was a long walk, because we were both trying to plan for the future and testing each other a bit. And of course, I knew Europe much better than he did. I knew America much better than I did. So he was just being adding to each other.
Did you keep the relationship or keep any relationship with him after that? Or did you guys just speak that one time and that was it?
No, I must say, I've never met any of his family. Not attend his funeral. So he just went too fast. But again, his attitude, talking about video, Jacob, through the epidemic, probably same time, in April or May, when we've done it, All the Heart is Fun, Arne's put a video together. And he was going through his cancer treatment.
I remember that video.
He was. I remember exactly where I was. I was in my office alone, and I watched it on my cell phone. Yeah, I did one in tears. That was just remarkable.
Yeah,
but tough to put.
Yeah, no, I remember that video. I think it was shared all over. I'm assuming we're talking about the same video where you see Arne. You can clearly tell he's going through his cancer treatment. He has he had a bald head. He looked different than he usually does, and he's giving this message of hope. And you could see even in his eyes, he looked like he was getting teary as well. And he's just giving this honest outlook on what's going on with the business and trying to give that message of hope. And it was, it was shared, I think, all over the world. And it was very, very impactful. Yeah. Did you ever talk to Arne again after that walk, or did you have any kind of communication, or was that it, just that walk? And then...
Of course I did. Yeah, I like the guy, I told you. So yeah, I did. But I won't share more secrets with you.
All right. So you had a good relationship with him, it sounds like. I also wanted to talk a little bit about something we touched on earlier, and this is about you. What is it about you that you think allowed you to succeed in your role? Are there certain skills or qualities that you think you possess that allowed you to get to this point?
You should be asking anybody but me, seriously. the one word who comes very often, which I like because I think that's what I want to be, is authenticity. I don't lie, I don't find an excuse, I don't invent something. Just reality is reality, just make it a good thing and project yourself and just be clear. So as a leader, two things. Number one, again, admitting that you don't know is something that many of us should be doing so many times. It doesn't make you a weak person, but admitting you don't know. Clarity, the three words that I used when I started at Accor, which you just make me remember them. The three words are agility, clarity, accountability. We call them ACA. And those three words meant a lot of things. I wanted people to have the agility to be empowered, to be autonomous, and to make decisions. I wanted people to, by making those decisions, I wanted to make sure they were accountable for bad decisions and good decisions. So responsible. And third, I wanted people around them to understand the context in which they were making decisions, which is clarity, transparency. Those three words have been super important in the transformation of life. And I probably will not renege on any of the three.
I like that. So it's a handy framework for people to remember. How do you set personal goals or expectations for yourself as far as learning, growth, development?
I don't. I'm only passing here, Jacob, in my role as CEO. Somebody is going to be succeeding me. It will be a different person, thinking and acting differently. I just want, I do have a bit of ego, which means I just want to leave behind a footprint. I mean, my print of what I've done, which is hopefully transforming this company to a much different company, which it is today, from the one I inherited in terms of segment geographies and a lot of things. I think are good. But I'll go back to the question before, if you accept.
Yes.
It's very critical for me and probably okay for the viewers. In terms of leader for me, I'll tell you the process on all my decision making always being the same in my past years and the process is the following. Any decision I make, 100%, they start with my stomach, my instinct, my belly. Number two, they go through my heart, whether that decision which is instinctive, how generous, non-generous, impactful it is on humans and the community. And only third comes the brain and the head to give you the tempo in which that decision should be implemented. Anybody starting reversely, I believe will fail, which is also my critiques on a lot of government. They are so intelligent that they start with their brain and they forget their stomach. So again, it worked for me. I think it's going to work for many other people, but it being a pretty good sequence, and I will never change it.
I love that approach, starting with the gut feeling, then how it makes you feel, and then only going to kind of the brain and the data piece. And you're right. I feel like a lot of business leaders, they start with the data piece, the information, the head, and then sometimes they don't even care about the other stuff. They just look at the data piece. And that actually gets to an interesting point of balancing people and profit. Have you ever been in a position where you have had to make a decision that helps people but maybe sacrifices profit? Or how do you balance those two things in your mind?
It's a very complex question. And even more complex when you're running a listed company in which you're acting on behalf of shareholders, taking risk, and you have to reward them for the risk they take.
Exactly.
That's part of an obligation. And if you forget too much about it, you're likely to be dismissed or you're not fulfilling your role. So that balance between what is good for the shareholders and what should be also good for the clients or employee community, in many cases, that equilibrium is very fine ice or impossible to find. So my way of doing it is I'll say it differently without being too. A strategy and decision should be implemented by the CEO. This is what people want me to do. This is why they elected. Then it has to be challenged by your board of directors, because this is my shareholders. If they don't like the decision of the company, they have the right to buy, sell, or maintain the shares. Don't ever, ever have a strategy of a company dictated by the street. Because if you do so, then you're reneging who you are, and then you're really short-minded, and you're going to be making wrong decisions.
So you said,
So that's
you said never have the strategy dictated by the profits?
by the street.
Oh, by the street. Okay.
The street meaning,
Yeah.
meaning by short-term profit.
Yep. Okay.
You can't. Anything you do in a company of our size, implications of your decisions are at the minimum 18 months, and between 18 months and 3 years. So, but if the profit are not immediate and you invest the money, the one thing you have to do, which is a must, back to communication. Explain to your shareholders why the profit is going to come only in 2 years and not tomorrow morning, and why that decision is the right and the right one. If you don't confront yourself with those waiting for profit, then again they're going to be hating you for the right reason. Just talk about it.
Well, we only have
So it's but you have to commingle both. I mean, as much as I know exactly what I owe to the shareholders, this is not my company. That company belongs to them. So, and I know there is a debt. So and I need also to explain to my union representative, like for example, we've decided a layoff plan of 3,000 people. That's also a super rough, unjust, unfair decision to lay off people in the worst ever economic environment. And I'm making that decision because I need to protect the profits of tomorrow and the sustainability of Accor. I know by doing it, that was impactful on a lot of people around me. But I went and confessed myself and discussed it with them and finally got their blessing. And they understood that it was needed to protect the other 270,000. So, but that's the nature of the difficulty of our job is, there's a lot of contradictory injunctions in what we do, of course, every day there's.
Well, we only have a couple of minutes left, so maybe one or two more questions. One of them kind of building on what you said. If there is anything that you want people to know about you, maybe your customers, your employees, or just general public listening and watching, to know about you or Accor or just the tough choices that a CEO makes, because it's very easy for people to just look from the outside and say, oh, how could he do that? Why is he doing that? What message would you like people to receive about you or being a CEO?
I guess caretaker, I've told you. Now, the only message that I want people to receive is that when I told you before I need to be fed, the futures of the hospitality travel industry is in the hands of the behavior, the demand of my clients. So all of you watching, I know for a fact that we went very quickly from a product-driven industry, Hilton, Holiday Inn, Marriott, Novotel of the world, pushing on you a product, norm, standardization, and you accepted it for 50 years, from 1970 to 2010. Those days are over. Now you're looking no longer for a product, which is indispensable, but you're looking for so much more. You're looking for an experience. Yeah. You're looking for preservation of the nature. You're looking for secluded destination. You're looking for experiences, which is much different from a product. So if you want companies like us or the American peers to do a good job to satisfy your demand, you need to enrich me on what you want for me to be able to service it to you. So I'm only saying to you that I guess this, which is what makes my job so interesting. And we haven't talked, Jacob, about flex office and all this change of digital tools, ability to have a better quality of time, better quality of life, working from any place in the world. The hotel industry, there's only 3 places open 24 hours, 7 days a week. Those 3 are police station, hospital, and hotels. I guarantee each of you looking at me, there's so much more we can be doing as acting locally. I am sick and tired of having the hotel industry only catering for those coming from a different town, coming from a different country. Those days of 50 years ago are past. A hotel being open 24 hours 7 should be a caretaker for 6 billion who do not travel, those living next street to me, because they need somebody being open 24 hours 7 to be helping them on the day-to-day life or ability to work or to meet someone. So I would have succeeded as a CEO as Accor if my 5,200 hotels of Accor finally opened the doors, our service, the great talents of Accor, to so many who knows my hotel but never entered because they never needed a shower or a room because they live next door. That's my duty in the next few years, is act locally on behalf of the local population. If you do so, I can tell you that blessed industry will be even more extraordinary.
I love that.
That's where we are.
I love that. And one last question, final question for you. For people who are watching and listening, who are trying to become better leaders in their lives and in their organizations, any suggestions or advice or tips for what we can all do to become better leaders?
Is by accepting that you do not know everything, actually that you don't know much. The only thing you should be really acting upon is team, collective intelligence. Make people around you valuable, indispensable, autonomous, empowered. Delegate your power with grace and happiness. Don't be narcissistic. Don't occupy the media. Don't be full of yourself, and don't be the man. Accor only exists because there is precisely 280,000 people. And I told you, I'll be gone. People won't remember me, but somebody else will be coming in and do a very wonderful job. So, team.
Well, Sebastien, thank you so much for your time. And I certainly hope we will remember you. And I have a feeling we will, based on this conversation and some of the...
No, but I want to embark. We need to do it again on Flex Office and the world of tomorrow. I can tell you, this is a huge revolution that we want to be part of. And fun.
I feel like I could... I feel like I could talk to you for hours about so many different things that you're doing. And the invitation is always open. If you ever want to come back, I would love to have you to talk to you even more about stuff.
Jacob, thank you for your...
Sure. Where can people go to learn more about Accor? I mean, anything that you want to mention for people to check out, please feel free to do so.
Yep. Accor website, you go on it, you're going to see the 41 brands, the network. I just remember one thing, which is on its size does not matter, but we happen to be the largest hotel operator on this planet. And we are number one every place but China and America. Europe, Southeast Asia, Australia, Japan, Korea, you name it. This is Accor. So come to us. We'll be hosting you with pleasure.
Next time I'm traveling, I'm going to be looking out for your brand for sure.
You'd better come to me and see me in
I
Paris.
will, yeah.
Terraces, restaurants are reopening. It's fun here.
Well, hopefully we'll get a chance to meet in person one day and go grab coffee or dinner somewhere. That would be fun. So, Sebastien, thank you very much for your time. And again, everyone, my guest has been Sébastien Bazin, Chairman and CEO of Accor. Hope you enjoyed the conversation, and I will see you next week. Thanks for tuning into this show. I really do hope you enjoyed it. And don't forget to head over to defineleadership.com to grab a copy of my brand new PDF that's going to walk you through a framework on how to create your own personal definition of leadership and why that matters now more than ever. You will also see the definitions of leadership from some of the CEOs I interviewed, including from the CEOs of organizations like KPMG, Oracle, and Verizon. Again, you can get that PDF at defineleadership.com. And of course, I would love it if you subscribe to this YouTube channel for more videos just like this and for interviews with some of the world's top business leaders. Thank you for watching.